Okay, it's 6:32. I'd like to call this meeting of the Strategic Initiatives Committee to order. All members are present. We've got one item on the agenda tonight, which is review 2020 DPW organizational analysis and DPW facility needs and site evaluation. Rebecca, are you doing this one or Leanne?
I am.
Okay.
And so I provided the links
Yep.
per request. And each of the committee members was going to look through the links, try to come back to the back of what they were looking to see analyzed.
Okay.
And I will be taking notes. Also included in your packet was the executive summary from the Public Works analysis. I pulled that out because the document that I reflect on annually is listed on page 3 of that summary. And it's the list of report recommendations. So that's what we have been working from since the report came out. Again, this may not be what you're interested in, but I just wanted to let you know from an initiative perspective, when I'm looking at work plans and how we're incorporating things, I will take those from each of the studies unless the study's been.
Right. Yeah, and I reviewed it before the meeting and, I had been a while since I'd looked at it. So for me personally, I felt like it was a good exercise to go back and review, why we're doing this long process, kind of the whole history of the site and the different studies that have been done over the years and the needs and why we're looking for certain sites, the criteria that's all laid out. So I found it very useful to go back and look at it. I don't know if there's me personally, I didn't have a whole lot to add. Are there other members that want to discuss it now, or do you want to take some more time to review, to go back and look at the report of this?
I mean, I guess you want to talk about this game. Not any. Do we want to talk about sort of my thoughts behind this, or, really what I was looking for, by the time we start breaking ground on this new facility, wherever it happens to be, it will have been 7 years since this study, 8 years since, 7 years since it's been done. I think maybe closer to 8 years since it was started. And I just want to make sure that whatever we're looking at moving forward, right? So this study seemed to be, obviously there were some recommendations, but there was an analysis of the facilities and the work that we were doing and how it was unique vis-a-vis other communities. And so you couldn't really equate them, apples to apples. As we move into not having a transfer facility necessarily, well, definitely in the same location as our yard, what does this yard need to look like? What should we be having conversations about service? Should we be having conversations about, how we're picking up trash or how we're picking up leaves? And I know that there are a ton of restrictions because of the contractors that we use. But what makes sense and what doesn't anymore? So sort of going through all of that in this study and then trying to figure out the best way to move forward was sort of incredibly important to me, because as we try to determine what the new site should look like, I just want to make sure we're taking into account all the things that we need to be when we build these things out.
Man, can I just ask you a quick question? In the 2020 report, we have core service matrix. I assume a lot of these services or programs are still pretty consistent. Has this changed much? Not at all. Okay. And then I know we have had some various hirings and movement in the department. Is there somewhere where we have a sort of org chart of everybody in the department available, that like a current sort of a current org chart?
I'm not sure if there's an actual graphic org chart,
Mhm.
but each of your budget always includes FTEs.
Got it. Okay. Yeah,
But
that would
we
be the
can
best place to look.
certainly provide that.
I guess I don't need a graphic like, the graphic chart. I think that's a little that's a little overkill for this, but if there was like a list from the budget that we could just kind of like extract out and put into just like a document form, I'd love to just kind of take a look at that. It's not critical, but I'm just kind of going off of this 2020 org chart here and would love to see how that's changed over the past 5 years.
The only thing that's changed would be the addition of the utility superintendent.
Hmm.
That would be like the umbrella over the utility division. So in
Okay.
the org chart you're looking at, the DPW superintendent has supervisory authority over all 3 divisions, so utilities, fleet and facilities and services. The change would be slotting that utility superintendent in with supervision over the 6 utility positions, and then just shortening that umbrella, so to speak, of the DPW superintendent over the other 2 divisions.
And that's really the only thing that's
That
changed
is
from
the
this.
only thing that has
Okay,
changed.
that's helpful. That's great. This is a really helpful sort of chart. Okay, and then when we look at those core service matrix from all the services, and that has not with your knowledge changed all that much, right? Because under it we have horticulture, forestry, waste and recycling, street maintenance, and winter maintenance
I mean,
under services.
there have obviously been changes, like regulatory changes in some of the items that we're required to do within those core services, but the bucketed services themselves have not changed.
Sure. I wonder if it'd be a fun exercise. We have the time. Do we want to go through this matrix and kind of, look at the, there's 4 parts to it from what I'm looking at. Maybe you can correct me, Lan, but we have administration, fleet and facilities, services, and utilities. Those are the 4 main components of this, of DPW. We want to go through each one of these in bullet points and see, kind of have discussions, see if that helps, like, any kind of conversation. Is that worthwhile for anybody here?
I mean, it's certain, from my perspective, it certainly could. I'm not an expert.
We've got
So-
experts.
No, but so when I'm looking at the recommendations, number 2 on staffing,
Mhm.
and maybe I missed this in the staff matrix,
What page are you on? Sorry,
3 of the summary.
of 2020 or?
So create an engineering inspector technician position to provide additional in-house project management capacity. Has that position been created? It's not, because the utility one is the one that's been created, right?
Yes, but they're not correlated.
Okay, so
Like-
they're,
We attempted to advertise and hire a couple of years ago that inspection position. But with the salary level that was approved and determined, we didn't get any qualified candidates.
so it's stuff like that. Looking back, do we
I
need to
guess-
make,
Yeah.
do we need to make adjustments? Are there?
Yeah, I mean,
is that
maybe
still
a good
needed?
place is this list of recommendations, right, from 2020.
We'll
Like,
Just go through them.
just go through each of these and see kind of like 5 years, it's been 5 years. Where are we at with any of these?
But I also would be interested to see from Leanne's perspective, what the next 10 years, like, what are we getting away from needing an engineer, technician, inspector? We're not going to be doing that anymore. Not going to be under the purview of what you see the department like in 10 years.
Hmm.
So that level of conversation as well. Like, okay, well, it made sense in 2019, 2020. Does it still make sense in 2025, 2026, 2030?
Yeah.
And then,
Leanne, do you have those kind of conversations, like internally or like within
Mhm.
yourself, just like envisioning what the
I-
DPW
yes.
you should be doing?
I'd be
Yeah.
interested in having those conversations.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I mean, I think as a community where, you know, I mean, I don't know how much more we want to spend in our facilities. I mean, like getting the facility done and getting a new facility with what it needs is going to be kind of enough. But, you know, I think one thing that some of us have interested in is like that sort of, you know, the green infrastructure and what that, is that something that we're going to lean into? And if it is, that's a big discussion point too, right? Are we going to, lean into electrifying whatever we can in the fleet? Do we need to retrofit or do we need to bring in new equipment to make that happen? So those are the kind of big things that I think we can all talk about or think about. But, and some of the service levels that we offer right now, are they antiquated? Could we do things more efficiently with the new facility and maybe some tweaks to the current equipment? So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And I mean, I think that's something that we should build a new facility to be planning ahead and, make it ready for charging infrastructure and things like that. I do see one potential, kind of decision point that we would have to make that could maybe change the costs one way or another, and that's leaf collection, which I know that there was a poll that showed that people want to maintain the current level of leaf collection and yard waste collection, and I don't have any reason to think that's incorrect. But it is, the biggest footprint is the transfer station for leaf collection, and I'm wondering, are people aware that, that's a big expense if we keep doing that? And I have a feeling that people would still prefer it, even if it does cost a lot of money. I've never heard anyone tell me otherwise. But I'm just curious if when the study was done or the poll, how was the question phrased? Was it phrased as like a trade-off of the expense? And,
Do you mind if I speak
yeah,
to that?
go, please do.
So there is actually no footprint for leaf collection that doesn't already exist for yard waste collection. It just happens that over the course of the year, the largest volume component of what we move through the yard waste part of the transfer station ends up being leaves. So, we have modernized and changed the way we do leaf collection on our end. That really doesn't impact what the way the resident rakes leaves or moves leaves to the curb is really not any different than it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. From our end, it's very different. We've cut our staffing in half. The way we do it now is much more efficiently, and it's much more geared toward reducing that annual phosphorus load. You spoke about green infrastructure.
Yeah.
That's one of the really big targets is phosphorus. Because we're filing with a sweeper and we have a dedicated sweeper that we can do that. So I don't personally think removing leaf collection the way we do it now is going to have a largely significant impact on dollars. The change, if you move to bagged leaf collection, the biggest change I think we would see there probably is in phosphorus loading. It would definitely be a very large water quality improvement. But we don't hire outside staff to help us the way we did, so we eliminated that expense.
Is that because of the vacuum trucks let you eliminate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we have a different style, so it's driver operated rather than somebody behind it.
Okay.
And we went from 3 units to 2 with a sweeper. So I think we've made that as efficient as we possibly can without moving to a bag system. And again, quite frankly, I don't think there would be a very large cost impact to the resident to move to bagging. If that's something that the village wanted to do, we certainly could, and we would probably be able to improve services in other areas, but we have those staff now, right? That's not going to reduce the staffing level just by bagging leaves.
Were you saying it's a less phosphorus bagging versus?
Yes,
Yeah.
because
so
as the water moves through those leaves, it
Yeah,
goes in
goes into the
the
sewer.
storm sewer,
Yep.
which empties into the
And
river.
people are still unfortunately like raking into the street too, which is not
People do that,
great.
yes.
I've seen a lot of that. I think there's still some confusion and it's just like a messaging thing. So maybe it's,
I would politely disagree. I think our communication on that
it's good.
is
Okay.
very consistent and very clear.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes when people do that, it's a mechanism to keep people from parking in front of a leaf pile,
Mm-hmm.
or they're just very particular about leaves on their grass. I
Yeah,
mean, some
exact-
people are, and
Yeah.
that's fine. I'm not a grass person, but I don't judge. right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think most people, that's a purposeful action. It's not oh, I didn't know.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking about efficiencies as well. Like, you know, it's something I love to think about in the context of DPW, and I think having a new facility, that's like one of the things that we don't talk about is like the efficiencies will go up dramatically. I think having a new facility, because there's so many inefficiencies, I think in the space that we work in now. Am I right by saying that?
I would agree. I think just in the executive summary, there's a notation about the number of hours that are used on an annual basis to move vehicles and equipment, because we don't have dedicated parking and we have to like Lego them in.
Yeah.
And it equated to more than a staff.
Yeah. That's wild.
That's a lot of time that doesn't add any value for the residents of the village.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really when we do things, that's what I like to look at is, where are we adding value? Is this thing that we're doing providing value? Is it providing a service? Is it something that someone would look at and say, that doesn't impact me. Why are you doing that?
Right.
Those are the kinds of things that don't add value.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been to our yard on a Saturday, you see what it looks like, right? And I say this to my kids at home and stuff too. It's really easy to be organized when you have the space to do it. It's more necessary when you don't, but it's infinitely harder. And we don't have the space to do that. So we're continually moving things, like you got your winter sweaters out and you put the shorts in the
Yeah.
thing under the bed. That's what we do on a regular basis. And it adds a lot of inefficiencies that don't add value to the services we provide.
That's great information though. Something we lose sight of a little bit because it's out of sight, right? Out of sight, out of mind. We don't see it. Community doesn't see it as much.
And I would say we're also so used to it that it's probably not something that we think about or recognize on a daily basis. It has just become an ingrained habit. And I think every once in a while you got to take a step back and look really hard at what you're doing and say, is there's a reason I'm doing this, but is there a way I cannot?
Mm-hmm.
And we try to challenge ourselves to do that every so often. But it's pretty constrained.
Can't help you. Sorry.
Yes.
So I'm just curious, the phosphorus aspect, knowing that we want to do the right things environmentally, but legally, are we dinged anywhere by some phosphorus?
Yes, phosphorus is a TMDL, and DNR and EPA have set total maximum daily loads for what we contribute to waterways. Obviously, this is all modeled, right? Nobody's out there at every outfall taking samples on an hourly basis to determine what we are loading. But yes, we have targets that we're required to meet.
And how do they measure that?
It's modeled. The
So they say, "You have a
requirements are
street
modeled.
sweeper." So when we bought our own street sweeper, we looked better in the,
Yes,
when we bought our leaf backs, that probably didn't affect it.
that
because
did
they were
not
being
affect the
vacuumed.
model because it didn't affect.
So the biggest thing that made the biggest effect was getting our street sweeper to follow the vacuum with.
Yes.
So what's the worst thing that happens? I mean, I guess going to bag, I see going to bags being an issue for residents. I mean, to me, it'd be great if we could somehow convince people to leave the leaves, a reduction, what's put out instead of what's mulched and kept on the lot. That would take a huge PR campaign. And the other thing that we have to recognize is there's a lot of contracted landscaping done. And a lot of it is not firms. You could reach out to the big firms, but a lot of it is Chuck with a truck, right? And
Mhm.
it's going to be impossible to reach those people and say, leave your leaves in the parkway, leave some leaves on the lot if it's okay with the owner.
Well, we would communicate with the property owners. That's our audience. And just, you know, we can chat about that, but to be clear, we're not advocating bagging leaves. So that's not, you know,
I guess, you know, the question though is for us, in terms of cost, the biggest cost is people, right? So we added to Public Works this year by adding a water a utility superintendent. If you're looking at cost savings for space and personnel, how do you make the cut? You want to make that's most effective.
the study did not recommend any cuts.
Right. And what I'm saying is, all your experience, where would you make the, we're looking to,
I would, quite honestly, I would just return that to you and say, service determinations are a policy decision. The board determines what services we provide. We use our expertise to provide them in the most efficient manner possible. So I would just look back and say, you represent the community. What services do you want us to provide?
okay, so you could prioritize what are like the top 5 we could reduce. And so one of them would be,
No, I would not do that. I would provide you with the list of
okay,
the
they wouldn't have to be
services
prioritized.
that
they
are
would just be 5
required
ideas.
by law.
Okay.
And so what we could do is provide you with a list of the services that are not required by law or don't impact health and public safety. And those would be things like flowers in the business district, block parties, special events, all things that make Shorewood what is Shorewood and don't really, you know, those are the types of things that we're not required by some sort of either state or federal regulation. I think most people would be really surprised if you go through and list our services, and we've done this multiple times, and you say, does this affect public health or public safety? The vast majority of our services get that checkbox. People don't really think of us that way, but that's what we do. We're public health and safety just as much as the police department or the health department or the fire department.
So does Whitefish Bay bring their yard waste also?
Yes,
And so they said they could do without.
not leaves,
Pardon me?
not leaves, but they bring bagged yard waste.
What do they do with it?
They have a piece of land that they use to hold the leaves temporarily. And then they have different contract arrangements, I guess, with like, landscaping firms who produce topsoil or large farms. They just kind of have a patchwork of agreements that after leaf season is done, those leaves are dispersed to various locations.
So could we do that? Could we do?
No.
Could we do that with,
They have not invited us to do that.
could we do it on our own?
We don't have the land to do that.
Could we find the land? I mean, if Whitefish Bay did it,
They own the property.
So the property that Leon's referring to is actually, it's a partnership between Glendale, it's in
Uh-huh.
the city of Glendale,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
Whitefish Bay,
excellent.
and it's been decades.
X.
This,
So Glendale's in on this.
That would have, we could do that. However, the travel time would add significantly to our operations to the point that to keep a day certain leaf schedule, we would have to buy another leaf truck. Because those trucks don't hold very much. And to eat 40 minutes or so on every load instead of the 10 we use now, would mean some major changes for that operation.
Where do our leaves go now?
They go in our yard waste compactor and then waste hauls them to their compost facility.
Waste management does.
Mhm.
Okay.
That seems pretty efficient. to Me.
How do we want to, Matt or Chair McGovern?
Yeah.
How do you want to handle the conversation? Like where do you want to go from here? How do you want to do this?
Well, I mean, I think the purpose of this meeting was, you know, this committee wanted to kind of review what's already been done in light of us looking at a larger, $150,000 study of the whole, service levels village-wide. And so it seemed to me that this purpose of this meeting was just to kind of discuss these things and use it to
Mhm.
inform, that RFP maybe. So it was, correct me if you're the one that wanted this.
Yeah, I mean, the point I was trying to make when I brought this up initially during the budget discussion was not necessarily a look back at what DPW has done or what DPW is current. This was more of we're about to make a multi-million, tens of millions of dollar decision about the next facility. What do we need to be thinking about ahead? And, using Leanne's expertise and others, if there are other folks out there that we should be listening to, but having conversations about, what does leaf removal service look like? Right? If we have a transfer station and the transfer station's not there and it's in a different community and it's a longer drive and it's not 10-minute turnaround, it's a 40-minute turnaround, what does that look like for services? Should we be planning ahead? Do we need to plan ahead? Is that
Yeah.
part of a capital or an asset conversation? All those types of things of just the next 10 years, the first 10 years of 10, 15 years of this new facility, wherever it happens to be, what does it need to have? What does it need to look like? What should we be thinking about when we're making these decisions? Because right now, in my mind's eye, we need a facility for trucks and for staff. We need a facility for, the transfer station, wherever that might be. I don't know. Okay. That's it. That's all I really know about the requirements of DPW of the next 10, 15 years. And so if there are conversations to be had about, we still really should have an inspector that's handling, an engineering inspector. What?
You want me to respond to that?
I mean, you can, but that's not necessarily the question for tonight.
I don't think it's necessary.
So that's part of a future conversation, right? So we should talk about all of those things. I don't know if it's a strategic initiatives conversation. I don't know if it's it's the same three people,
Yeah. And
if it's a DPW conversation, but I want to start tackling that so that when time comes for the board to make a decision, we actually know what we need to invest in for the next facility.
yeah, and I agree with all that. And I think we should be, we've got some pretty detailed analysis of like, how much time does it take to move all these trucks around this tiny little lot that we're currently using? And that's a problem identified in detail in the Barrientos study. And so that's one reason why we're looking for a 5.5 acre site instead of a 4 acre site. And then I think we also have to make sure we're adding in, the time that it's going to take to drive to whichever site we pick. And that'll be staff time and fuel and all that other stuff. And I think we're aware of that. And, we should just make sure that's considered because, this is going to be something that we keep for, I don't know, 50 years or something like that. So it's something that's important. And then, in that long-term planning, we touched on briefly things like electrification and green initiatives. There's going to be more and more electric vehicles available. It's a lot easier to build that stuff, the wiring and everything. If you have it built into your new building, it's much easier to just add it later or just have the new one have chargers as part of the project, part of the RFP that you include some charging and solar and things like that, especially if we're spending time, driving a mile to someplace that's outside of Shorewood, all the better to have an electric, garbage truck or something like that. So, but for purposes of this meeting, it seems like, I guess Rebecca's taking notes, where we should just be sort of capturing these ideas we have for making sure we're studying the right stuff, when we both look at new sites and look at this larger study of service levels throughout the village that will include DPW.
I would love to know though, if you could, we're just touching on the business district and the flowers in the business district and DPW managing that right now. that's something I'd be willing to talk about and see if the bid can actually take over on something like that. If if that could save us some money, I think that that's a perfectly good conversation to have with the bid. You know, they seem to they're able to raise enough money. They just raise their rates. So that could be something that they could take over as well. So I'd love to have that conversation. If there is a list like that, Leanne, of things that, you know, that we're not legally tied to, would love to. I think that's a good place to start. That's the place I'd be willing to start, as opposed to, you know, cutting other services. Now, I think Kathy makes a great point, and, you know, something that she's talked about, you know, probably the last 6 years we've been on the board is like collaboration with other municipalities. And, you know, it seems like we don't always have, you know, the best sort of line of communication with other municipalities. And I don't know if at one point it's worthwhile for, you know, folks to get together and have a much bigger North Shore overview of like, hey, we're all doing these different things. Is there room for us to work together? I think, you know, I mean, at some point having some sort of, you know, North Shore DPW executive director like summit could be a really valuable experience.
We do that quarterly.
Fantastic. That's great. That's
Yeah.
good to hear.
So the North Shore directors get together quarterly.
Oh, wonderful.
In fact, we're required to because of our stormwater permit.
And who does that, who's a part of all of those? Is the Whitefish Bay, Glendale, you?
River Hills, Fox Point, and Bayside.
Oh, okay.
But we often have multiple things on our agenda, you know, that we talk about, different regulations or other things that are affecting us. And we regularly do have conversations about equipment and opportunities to sort of work together on services within the realm of, you know, administrative authority, right? So if it rolls into a larger policy discussion, that's obviously not our purview.
Yeah.
I will say, when we do have these conversations, where I typically will get hamstrung is the level of service that we provide is as a general rule higher than most of the other communities. I would say Whitefish Bay is probably the exception there. And it's very difficult to have a conversation with, you know, a prospective partner. If I'm doing this and spending this and they're doing this and spending that, why are they going to want to spend more and do more so that Shorewood spends less? Now, that's not everything, but that's the vast majority of the things we talk about. That's why we, you know, have kind of run into these issues where it can be very difficult to find a partner, simply because we're not doing the same. We're doing the same things. We're not doing them the same. And, you know, we're, as far as I know, the only community in the North Shore that provides day certain leaf collection. You know, Bayside, River Hills, Bayside, Fox Point, they use a vac similar to we do. Whitefish Bay has a vac and they push leaves, but they don't tell anyone we're going to be there every Tuesday for the next 6-7 weeks. Their message is, you put it out and we'll get there when we get there.
Mhm.
I would be okay moving to,
So would I.
just as a,
I don't think most of your constituents would, based on the telephone calls that I get
Sure.
every single day about leaf collection.
sure, but I mean,
Facing.
it should be part of it, but this is going back to what I was talking about. This should be part of it. We can decide, policy position, we can decide a day specific collection, or if it increases other services, we could have a conversation about it. But
Oh, what's the value there? I mean, like, what's the monetary cost of Dave versus whenever we can get to it? Is there a cost you can associate with that? If we decide to go and whenever we get there, are we going to save $10,000, $5,000, $20,000? Like, what would be the savings?
I think that honestly, that varies from year to year.
Mhm.
And that's not controllable always.
Mm.
It's very weather dependent. It's dependent on how and when the leaves drop. You know, certain species will drop early and certain this year's been
Don't even say it.
Mhm.
picture perfect in
Yeah.
terms of leaf collection.
Yeah.
Picture perfect.
Perspective.
But we do have years where we have a huge drop. And before we get started, we're behind.
Mhm.
And in order to maintain day certain leaf collection, we have to work overtime. Now, in these conditions, that overtime is usually another hour because it's just dark and it's not safe to do leaf collection in the dark. But those types of years, we do have overtime costs because we strive to maintain that schedule that the board approved. This year, it will be next to nothing. We'll have a little next week because we're trying to do 5 days and 3. But other than that,
Will we see that savings? Because I'm sure you you
no,
look at
because
what the
it's
overtime is.
budgeted staff.
Okay, it's budget. Okay.
There won't be.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we're a community that values our trees for sure. You know, we are ranked very high up in the, the arbory sort of world of communities. And I think, we love our trees here. And I think more so we love the fact that they're cleaned up very fast, and I mean, it's amazing to watch it go through and these leaves drop and then they're gone. So I think our residents would be pretty frustrated if the leaves sat there for too long and started to blow around a little bit much and then got in more into the streets and the sewers. So it's pretty nice that there's a consistent schedule. I do appreciate it.
Is there a way to have sort of a more structured discussion than, I mean, I just sort of willy-nilly brought up that
Right.
I'd be open to talking about leaf collection, right? But it's not agendaed. It's not like, is there a way to go through the recommendations or just to, have you write where we are on the recommendations and then have a structured conversation about leaf collection?
Like the
Garbage
services,
collection.
like if you look at these, like the core service, like the matrix here for all the department core services. I mean, I kind of at the beginning of this meeting, I was like, we should just let's go through these bullet points and kind of have that conversation.
Yeah, I mean,
Obviously we've got 21 more minutes. We could start somewhere, but I mean, maybe, in the future, whether it be a DPW or special initiatives, we sit down and we kind of like go through, there's going to be some that are going to be more like waste and recycling. And that's going to be a big conversation. Forestry, maybe not so much a big conversation, but
but then how do we tie that into a larger conversation about studying what DPW like 10 years,
mhm.
right? Like we could talk ad nauseum about all the individual little
Mhm.
things the DPW, and we could break it down, but there's no, like, I don't feel like I have at this point a solid picture of, I know where we are now. I don't know where we're going to need to be. I don't, like Leanne saying that we no longer need recommendation number 2. It doesn't anymore to have that inspector. And I keep harping on it, but that doesn't make any sense anymore. Right. So let's talk about something else and let's move on, having a different discussion. Or if Leanne should, would be able to come to us and say, here are the 10 things we need to be thinking about for the next DPW yard and transfer station. And these are the trade-offs that we would have. And this is what this needs to look like, and so on and so forth. Because right now I'm just looking at square acreage of a possible station in our community or another community, square acreage for a possible station or a transfer station in our community. And that's really the only requirements that I'm looking at. I don't know what else needs to go there or what else it needs to look like. And, if we want to change leaf collection and that requires an additional truck, that's a whole nother conversation. And so all of these are sort of quasi known unknowns as we move into DPW 10.0, whatever it happens to be, 100.0.
I-
But that's the stuff I want to talk about.
Sure. I could do a couple things for you. One, I will say that the Barrientos study tells you what your facility needs to look like based on what we're doing right now.
Right.
So that's all there. It changes if the services change. So if we're going to talk about that, there's 2 things I could provide for you to sort of frame that discussion. One would be, we go through the recommendations from the 2020 study and just provide you updates on where we are on those, or if they've changed you know,
Mhm.
information context, right? The other thing I would be happy to do is to share with you our current list of services and sort of bucket those into, you know, are these federally or state required services to provide? Are they specifically related to health and public safety? Or are they, well, I'll call them quality of life
Sure. I mean,
additions.
I think that's super helpful because I think to your earlier point, there are 95% of the things are required. That whatever the
In one way or
percentage is,
another.
right?
Yep.
But like a large percentage of the things that you're doing at DPW that you're managing are required by somebody.
Mhm.
The 5% or whatever the actual percentage happens to be are the variables that, you know, we can have discussions about.
Sure. Well, you can have discussions about the others.
Yeah.
Typically, we're required to provide them. It's up to the community to decide how and to what level. Right? But there are certain things that we are required to do, like with some of the storm sewer issues and the TMDL issues.
Mhm.
Like those, that's a federal requirement that's administered by the state. We don't have a ton of wiggle room there. I've yet to find like a federal requirement that says you got to pick up garbage, but I don't think anybody would think it was a good idea if we didn't do that.
I am
Yeah.
pro garbage collection.
Yep.
If I may, or are you going to go?
You can go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just, well, I do just have one sort of quick comment or statement. It's something I'd be interested in seeing. And if we are able to save some of this money from a $150,000 study, organizational study, maybe we could spend a little bit less and do a, you know, look into a potential study of what the, you know, potential, you know, based off of Barrios, what we're doing now, but like, can we actually do a study where we project into the future of like, what are some of those, you know, efficiencies that we could be looking at in the next 10 to 20 years, and like maybe a sort of a long range projection study about what the DPW is going to need and what that's going to look like in the next 20 years. I'd be very interested in seeing something like that if we were going to spend any money on a study.
Oh, I
Yeah.
forgot it's your committee.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, along those lines, I mean, it would be my preference to just take the Barrientos studies because I think it's really good. It's very detailed.
Yeah.
It's a little bit dated. So just, you know, I think Leanne and this committee or DPW committee could just kind of look at what, if anything, needs to be updated or revised based on policy changes or other just things change in 5 years or whatever it's been. But I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. You know, I think it's pretty solid as it is. And
Mhm.
that would maybe take some work away from this bigger $150,000 study. Like, I don't think that study needs to redo what was done here, you know? And so I think that would be kind of like a good starting point, is just to hear what, if anything, needs to be updated from that for the next facility.
If I may.
Yeah.
I'm glad you came back to that because that was the charge of the committee, is to look at the organizational study, the scope for that, and to tease that all out. The Barrientos study was based on the board direction of we should approach DPW facilities based on current service levels or as close to that as possible. And with the understanding that since we can't rebuild everything on one site, if we have a split site, it's going to add some time to to providing services. But that is different than saying we are going to privatize services or we are going to go to every 2 weeks collection rather than every week collection. So the board took the time to deliberate that and give that direction. So really any discussions about service level should go back to the board for reconsideration, because if we change that, that opens up the discussion of what do we need to have in 10 years, 20 years in a facilities or something like that. But we are all bound by that village board direction in 2020 that said, or 2023, anyway, whenever the year was, that said, proceed with future DPW plans based on current service service levels or as close to that as possible if we have to have a split site. Does that help kind of contain the viewpoints?
I mean, I think, just hearing about it, I'm on board with, I think we do a fantastic job here. So I kind of drink the Kool-Aid. I think, we are, a notch above our neighbors. I think I think what everybody really wants to hear is, okay, so we do every other week garbage pickup. What's the cost savings there? I think what I hear from the board routinely is like service levels, like where can I find savings here? And I think that's what we're looking for is like, maybe not me so much because I do appreciate what our service levels currently are, but from what I hear from others, it's like, if it's every 2 weeks, what do we save? If we make people bag their leaves, what do we save? Like, what are where are those little nooks we could save some money? And I think that's ultimately what we're looking for, or what people want to hear. Whether we give that them or not, whether you have that knowledge or not, I think that's like, those are the big decision points that I think that I keep hearing, that people want to see.
That's why we were going to do the organizational study to have that baseline for service level discussions. But when it comes to DPW, because we are making a decision about future facilities, we have to make sure that that lines up. So again, I just wanted to make sure that that you understand that to talk about changes in service level, that really does need to go back to the board.
And just one more point to all of this is, if we're making these savings on, let's say, picking up garbage every 2 weeks or whatever the other kind of service adjustment we may make is, will we make that money back if we have a more efficient sort of yard and we can do things like we're not playing truck Tetris every day, or we're not doing the various inefficient things that we have to do just to maintain our certain like current state at our current yard? Are we going to actually just naturally save more money because everything is more efficient? And would that savings help pay, like offset the cost of every week garbage pickup?
There'll be a multitude of answers to that question, right?
Yeah.
My initial response to that question is, I think I don't believe it would be an immediate right now cost savings, right? I think our biggest cost, I believe, as Trustee Stokbrand or somebody said earlier, is people, right? The people are budgeted for 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year. That's kind of a set cost. I think where you're going to see savings ultimately, but not immediately, is if you're freeing up that amount of time in every day, we're going to be able to use that time to do better infrastructure maintenance and management, right? There are some things, and if you read the executive summary, they say it right there. The thing that we fall short on most often is preventative maintenance. We often tend to find ourselves in a reactionary spot. And part of that is that there simply aren't enough hours in the day to do all of the tasks that we need to do to maintain our infrastructure. When I say infrastructure, I mean like everything we own.
Yeah.
At the level that we would prefer to do it.
Right.
So we triage.
Got it.
And if we had more time in the day, you're still paying someone for 8 hours, but maybe instead of a half hour of driving things around without adding value, that half hour over the course of a week is another 2.5 hours that's spent, doing some sort of maintenance on something.
Right. And if we have more time to save some of the things before they get to the point of triage, we're probably saving
That'll
more
be
money
a
there
cost
as well.
savings too.
Right.
But I think it's important to remember that that's going to happen over time.
Yeah.
It's not going to be one of these types of things.
Right.
Would you maybe see some early savings though in less overtime?
I don't know. I will tell you that our 3 biggest uses of overtime are winter. Can't really change much of that. Events. That is a Shorewood community thing, right? Everybody loves their events. And then water main breaks. Water main breaks. Also can't control that. So I wouldn't expect to see a big difference on that.
Okay.
One thing I and I believe it was in the Novak study, though I don't know if it was in the executive summary, but I do believe that summary pointed out that Shorewood actually has one of the lowest per capita expenditures for DPW services in the North Shore, which,
That was this.
given the age of the infrastructure that we're maintaining, the constraints under which we do that, I immensely proud of the work we do. And while I recognize that the community is looking for savings in any case they can, in any place we can find them, and we are not perfect. There is always going to be places that we can do better. But I truly don't believe we're talking huge sums of money in altering our service provision.
And I guess what the residents would feel would be more hard than the actual savings we'd be getting, right? So if they had to do more work now, if they're bagging their own leaves,
Some people might say, that's fine.
Yeah.
But some people might not, might feel different.
Mulch your leave. Okay.
I guess I would just encourage, obviously staff has done a great job and I have a lot of respect for all the work that everyone in the department, they do a great job. And it looks to me like from the Novak report of recommendations, we did all the way really well until we got to number 8. And then we started, not that I'm aware of, maybe I'm missing something here, other than number 10, review transfer service operations, where we realized that Whitefish Bay needed to pay us a little more, and we did that. But it seems to me that after 8, I'm not quite sure where we got with those things. And so I guess more than Barrientos, which to me is looking at maintaining what we're doing now in the same way, I would like to see us go back to Novak and see how do we work on numbers 8, 9, and then 11 on down. It seems to me that we can look at some of the things that are mentioned. Do you look at outsourcing? Do you outsource? We already outsource recycling. Do we outsource garbage? Do we outsource street lighting, traffic device? I mean, those are jobs, and that would save us a lot of money. I understand there would be a trade-off. So it's,
I don't think in most cases it would save you a lot of money. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but we've looked at some of those things, and in almost all cases, we can provide a better level of service for equal or less money.
okay, I guess I need to see it. I respect you and what you do, but until I see the numbers, I don't know that. And the other thing I would say is, of course, the collaboration. If instead of spending $150,000 evaluating our department or whatever, what if we looked at hiring a consultant who specializes in collaboration with other communities that gets them to work together? What if you hire a consultant that specializes in looking at public works and from a different lens? What if we spent the money on a high quality community survey to really look at what residents will absorb if you're looking for changes? Those would be things that, do we have to have the on-site fuel? There's a gas station down the street from Public Works, right? Do we have to have on-site fuel for the school district and for the DPW when there's a gas station 4 blocks away? Those, I guess, are things that, is there any more equipment? We don't seem to share anymore as much as we used to share. I understand there's a trade-off, but I think that's something that could be discussed too.
We do discuss that on a regular basis.
Yeah, I know, but the problem is, it's sort of like, how do you get someone to come to the table and say, I'm willing to give up something? It's like how hard it was for North Shore Fire Department to get together. I mean, that was just a monumental thing for those communities to do. And this is no different. Getting public works departments from multiple municipalities to work together to save money, this is going to be really, really hard. And it's going to take a lot of leadership. But I think with all the constraints the South Side municipalities are talking about merging fire departments, and with the state restrictions we have, people, municipalities have their back against the wall. And I think it's a time that I would hope we could look at some other ways to do something. Glendale's already doing something with Whitefish Bay with their leaves. Let's look at it. I mean, this seems to me like the we don't have a lot of choices. We have to try.
Okay, well, it's 7:27. So I think we should wrap up unless there's anything really urgent right now.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
I,
Okay, meeting's adjourned.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Hello. Oh, I had something. I forgot to bring it.
Look at me. Look at me. I'm in charge of nada. I was looking around. That's what I do. Always.
Went to the restroom.
He's got an office.
We were both sitting in there, like, trying to figure it when
Well, I
it's
should
over.
have gone and talked to him.
Hmm.
He told me he was, I didn't realize that he didn't have a meeting.
Who?
Wesley.
Oh, yeah, we
Going to
were
my
sitting in
grandmother's.
there. Oh.
This-
Thinking that something was over.
Then we've got an all-day soccer. Driver. One day, depending on your age, Friday,
Yeah.
Saturday, Sunday, one day soccer tournament, girls soccer. And that's it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's like. We're short.
That's awesome.
So we'll be at.
I love
Kinda
the
worked
wall. Love it. I just think like the. Yeah. It's just,
Section.
And not doing anything.
yeah, it's just even like, it's a different
Yeah.
type of fun.
Oh,
So
Oh,
I'll be
good.
up- I'll be up north. Pretending I know how to steer. Best case scenario, I'd have a better shot if a deer ran into my car.
It would be like
take the credit. for
probably
Hey. Venison.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the village board to order at 7:34 PM. All trustees are present this evening. Has this meeting been publicly noticed?
The meeting has been properly noticed and posted according to law.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening, and I thank you for your time, talent, and patience as we conduct business. We will be moving through the agendas, beginning with item 4, special order of business, of which we have one this evening. Small Business Association Disaster Assistance Program presentation by Mr. Nigel Watt. Mr. Watt, can you come to the podium, please?
All right, can everyone hear me well?
Mhm.
Thank you so much to the board and Shorewood for having us here. So my name is Nigel Watt. I'm a public affairs specialist with the Small Business Administration Office of Disaster Recovery and Resilience. And those last two words I want you guys to focus on during this short presentation. We're here in town, especially in Milwaukee, our primary county, helping with the disaster that happened back in August, the storms, the flooding, and getting people as much funding as possible. The SBA just so happens to be the largest source of funds for privately damaged property post-disaster. And we're better than the banks when it comes to interest rates. The funds come directly from the Treasury, helping obviously businesses of all sizes, nonprofits, but also and especially homeowners and renters. In fact, the vast majority of our disaster loans go towards those homeowners and renters. And I believe it's about 77%, which is great. So far, we've loaned about 29 million for this disaster in particular. Now, we have a couple different loan programs and with different deadlines. Very specifically, I wanted to talk about. Firstly, our physical damage loans. That application deadline actually happened last week on the 12th. but they do have a 60-day grace period for survivors to still apply for those. And businesses can qualify for up to $2 million in funding, homeowners up to $500,000, and renters up to $100,000, including their car and personal property as well. Now, our second disaster program is our economic injury, which for businesses and nonprofits, they might have experienced that loss in revenue, might need some working capital. They might not even feel that for a couple months after a disaster. So that deadline is June 11th, 2026 to apply for that. Now, insurance is usually the first line of defense when it comes to these kind of things. But as you all may know, a lot of survivors are either underinsured or uninsured altogether. FEMA was in town to help with grants. The SBA is here as kind of the final line of defense, a lifeline, so to speak, to help with the bigger projects. Now, when it comes to the physical damage loans, there's also a mitigation portion, kind of getting into that resilience that we're talking about. Survivors can apply for up to an additional 20% on top of their loan amount to help build back better. Essentially, that initial loan is to help to get them to the point they were before the disaster, the mitigation to build it even better, sump pumps, seawalls, better roofs, things like that. Now, there's multiple ways to apply. We are going to be in town for a couple more months. Hopefully, we still do have some business recovery centers, disaster recovery centers open with throughout Milwaukee County and the other counties as well. And they can also apply online, sba.gov/disaster, our hotline, and in person with our customer service representatives. So I'm asking the board to help spread the word to as many survivors as possible. I'll be around if you have any questions for me, and I can leave some flyers as well. So that'll be all. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I imagine you're in touch with West Dallas.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
A
absolutely.
lot of damage there in Tosa.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. All right. That concludes special order of business. And now we have the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Warren, seconded by trustee Ursink. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We can move on. We have no items removed from the consent agenda. And next we have a public hearing for our 2026 proposed budget. So within our packet, the way that we'll proceed this evening is we will have a presentation by our finance director. Then we will open up the public hearing where we can hear from residents regarding the budget. I'll close the hearing. We'll proceed through citizens to be heard and then take up the resolutions pertaining to the budget under new business.
Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. For us to go over your 2026 budget. And I definitely have all the slides memorized, but I'm still gonna cheat off of the screen. As we kind of pull those up, wanted to acknowledge anybody in the audience that's here to watch the presentation.
And Christina, if we could just make sure you get into the microphone there, that's great. Thank
Okay,
you.
I'll look at. Yeah, maybe I'll just do this.
There you go.
Okay. So this is our presentation and public hearing of the 2026 budget, which we will be adopting this evening. And the overall breakdown for the property taxes, I do want to note in the publication materials has been updated from these amounts. So we do have that republished out on the village's website. But the kind of takeaway from this is the village alone is not your entire property tax bill. It is made up of a bill that is comprised of the amount that goes to the school districts, the county, MMSD, and MATC. And there is a breakdown there. in kind of coming up with this breakdown, all of the timing is very close here. So we didn't have it exactly updated for the current year, and we did put additional information out there with an update. So we can move on from this, and please reference that updated material that will be available in the finalized agenda. But overall, for the village itself, the average increase in your tax bill over the entire past decade, that's including some of the bigger increases that we've noted in the last couple of years, is still only 1.88%. So although we have seen larger increases the past couple of years, everything was kept flat for a very long time. Let's keep going. And so, you know, the property tax levy itself is comprised of the operational levy as well as the debt service levy. So in order to give you an idea of where the village is for the debt service piece of that, we have this breakdown. So you can see 32% of your levy is finalizing or paying for your debt service expenditures. And of course, overall, if we look at the increase in the overall property tax levy of 2.81%, which includes that debt service, this is for an average $340,000 home. It's an increase of $78 over the 2024 levy, which was used to finance the 2025 budget. So we're levying in 2025 to finance our 2026 budget, and you will be paying for an average $340,000 home, $78 more for our levy this year. 32% of it being debt service.
That last one?
So it's 2024 levy to finance our 2025 budget. That was last year. This year, we are levying 2025 to finance our 2026 budget.
And do we have a pie chart for that?
No, the pie chart is showing the debt service versus the operations. The overall levy difference is $78 for a medium $340,000 home increase. The overall increase in the levy is 2.81%. Okay, we can keep going. As far as, you know, your budget is made up of your revenues and then your expenditures. So in order to show you your components of revenues that we have in the 2026 and 2025 actual, or 2025 actual revenues are presented here for the composition for what our expenditures are. And then we use that to forecast your 2026 budget. So property, yes, this is just the revenue side. So the 2026 actual budget that we are, you know, assessing is a levy for your operations. And that is, it currently makes up 62.9% of your general fund revenues. This is then in comparison to 63% of the prior year. So we're pretty flat there for when we compare the overall property taxes to the total revenues in the governmental fund.
Can you tell me in this slide where are the streetlight fees and where is the wheel tax in this pie chart?
In the pie chart, the streetlight fees and wheel tax would be under charges for services. It's the little black 8% sliver there. License and the wheel tax would be in licenses and permits. So then the following presentation shows you how the expenditures are made up in the budget by service area. And those expenditures increased from the prior year, which were 14.42 as budgeted. And this year for 2026 budget, it's 15.3 is what we have budgeted for expenditures. That's made up of the pie chart, as you can see there, for the different functions: general government, public works, police, other public safety, and then just generally other. The overall increase is made up of the main components related to those functions, as we have noted: 1, 2, 3, and 4, general government, public safety, public works, and health. Those were the increases in those particular functions for various reasons. The overall increase in expenditures is an average of 6%. And so obviously that will include our typical 3% increases, but there are some items that are being increased at a greater rate. And then there are some one-time new fees that are built into the budget this year that have been approved by the board, which we do have listed a little bit later in the presentation. If you want more additional detail on that, there is a link there for the agendas. We can keep going. So in the special revenue fund specifically, we've got the library, the senior resource center, as well as Shorewood Today. All of those have their own budgets. The library fund is budgeted by its own board, which we then also approve. And that budget is approved for $1,335,000, of which 76% is funded by property tax revenue. Their budget increased 3.6%, and it includes a tax levy increase of 3%. The Senior Resource Center is also funded by property taxes. The expenditures of $221,000, 58% of those is financed by property taxes. And then Shorewood Today is actually funded by advertising fees and not by property taxes. So we wanted to show how that is budgeted as well. Move on to the debt service fund, which again is part of your overall levy that we have, a portion of it being operating, and then the debt service levy as it is shown here. The debt service fund revenue portion of that does come as a transfer from the tax increment financing districts, which have their own levy as well. So 60% of that is coming from the general levy, and the rest of it is transfers from the tax increment districts for their portion of the property tax levy that finances your debt service payments for the village. And we can move on to the capital projects fund, which is a separate fund in the village's financial statements, but also is separately taken care of and planned for and forecasted as part of the village's larger ongoing long-range planning process. And this then, as a result, has that long-range plan listed here for other projects that are occurring in the near future. So although some of those projects are going to be happening in water and sewer funds, we just have it listed here so you can have a full listing of the capital project expenditures that we have highlighted in your overall 2026 budget all in one place. So the projects that are happening in this budget are listed first, and then we have some carryover funding from previous projects that we have already made decisions on that are noted as well in the second portion of the slide here. And then we can move on to the enterprise funds. So the enterprise funds are specific funds that we have that are for a specific service that is provided by the village. We set aside a separate parking utility, and for the budget for that, we have $106,000 for the year, and those operating expenses are 2.6% increase forecasted. The revenues are based on estimates of permit sales under the current fee schedule that we have. Again, that's all forecasted out. Then the water utility and the sewer fund will have some greater increases that are in the works in 2026. The water utility specifically, we will be working through the approved recommendations that we have filed with the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin. And once approved, we'll flow through all of those changes into the budget and amend that budget for the new expenditures and revenues that were approved. The predominant outlier there is we purchase water from Milwaukee Water Works, and then a portion of that is our expenditures, which we have forecasted at $728,000. The vast majority of the rest of the budget currently, however, is not in line with the Public Service Commission recommendations until approved. So we will be seeing a revisit of the water utility budget once we do have those additional amounts approved. And the sewer utility, as a result of issuing revenue bonds, has to maintain a certain revenue bond coverage. And in order to maintain that, we do have a rate increase plan for the 2026 budget of 33% in looking at the final forecasted amounts in that fund.
Quick question. Is there any possibility that that 30% increase does get approved? I ask because I know that we've had discussion throughout the budget process and it continues to be, you have a pin in this item saying that we're going to redo the budget once it's approved. And it just seems like it's dragging out quite a long while.
Correct. So as noted in the most recent summary that we put out for the village as a whole, we are currently planning a Public Service Commission public hearing for December, mid-December, that will be occurring, and then we'll put that out when it's finalized through the Public Service Commission. At that time, mid-December, everything will be finalized after that. So we do hope that this will be resolving within this current fiscal year yet. Yep. Okay, so that concludes the enterprise funds, and we could move on to thanking everyone for all of their hard work in putting together the budget this year. And I'm definitely available for any questions at this time. I know we'll have this out there. We'll have a budget book out there for your review after everything is finalized and approved. And of course, if there are any questions after the fact, we'd be happy to answer those at any time as well. Thank you, everyone, for your time and attention.
Thank you. Trustee Stokebridge?
I did have a couple questions. First of all, Shorewood Today, is Shorewood Today now totally supported by advertising? Because that would be a new thing, I think.
No, I believe there was a percentage that said how much of it was supported, and
Okay.
the remainder is supported by a general fund transfer.
Right, okay, so just to be clear, that is not self-supporting yet.
What is the?
Oh, so the remainder comes from the other entities
Right,
that we service with that. I
But it's
apologize.
not advertising supported yet. I mean, that would be the goal, right? We're not, if that had changed, that would be great news.
It's not 100%. No,
Okay.
which is, I don't
Okay.
remember the percentage noted there. but
And
it's
the
not
other thing, I
100%.
think that it's significant for, there are two departments that have significant budgetary impact from donations, and that would be the library. I think the SRC has the Benjamin Fund and makes substantial contributions to their programming. I don't know if that's mentioned. And the other part is the Lang Fund at the library is also a significant budgetary contributor to that. So, okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, thank you. I am really grateful for the added information that you provided in this document today, the extra work that went into it. I appreciate that. I think that anything we can do, I mean, obviously, the most important role that you play is to make sure our books are current and accurate. But the second most important thing is, to be able to communicate to the residents, because we're playing with their money. And that's a figurative term. So, communication with the residents is so important, and I'm very grateful for what you've done to make this so much better since.
Thank you very much. David Hickey has worked very hard to come up
Appreciate
with the additional items that were added.
Thank you.
Trustee Warren?
I echo Trustee Stokerbrand's comments. Thank you for all the work that you put into this document. As I was just going through, kind of looking at village revenue, comprises each of the revenue buckets. I was looking at intergovernmental comprises a big portion of our revenues here. I mean, it's really stayed pretty stable over the course of the last few years. I'm wondering, given the political climate and the possibility for change in Madison, come next year, is that, if that bucket is something that might be put at risk if we need to make cuts? In other words, is that something that's been steady for, regardless of the administration in Madison, or is it something that, might be in danger on a go-forward basis, depending on election?
I think the simplest answer is due to the levy limits, I would expect those intergovernmental revenues to stay relatively where they are. If they change anything with the levy limits in the legislation, that's when I would expect them to do something with the state aids as well. So I think those two things go hand in hand. And then most recently, the state did come out with an innovation grant that just got approved. So, you know, if they go down that line, I think they're gonna stay with the levy limits and then keep with the transportation and other state aids. So unless something really significant changes in Madison where we do a flip of the levy limits and then allowing for other types of financing to come through, I just don't see how people could make it work.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Trustee Stokbrand.
Just going over the public hearing page. So charges for services went up 21.82%. Is that the streetlight fee?
It is likely due to the streetlight fee, but we can get back to you specifically on those components.
And then other financing sources went up 152, and I wondered if that was the. So that's page 32 of the packet. 152% increase, budget to budget percent change was,
152%, not 152,000?
no, 152%.
Oh, I misheard that.
So other financing went from 2025, it was 140,000 to 2026, it goes to 355. And I thought maybe that was the wheel tax.
That is mostly comprised. Transfer from the general. fund
Oh, okay.
from the general fund
To cover up the deficit.
debt.
Right, okay, so, and then there was a question earlier today about, were we taking money from parking? And my understanding was we weren't taking from parking, we were moving from the general fund reserves.
That would not require a separate move or transfer. It just would be, you're spending down your fund balance.
So what are we doing? Are we? I thought that we
Yeah.
were making up,
Go
we were
Right.
$400,000
you are-
short.
You are correct. There is no money coming out of the parking fund. It's coming from the general fund.
Okay, reserves, okay. And I know on the one chart you had public safety, you divided out our local police department from the North Shore Fire and Emergency, and I do appreciate that. I know it's not on this page. And maybe that's for formatting or something, but I do appreciate having that separate where you can, because I think it's important for us to see what our local police department costs. And so I appreciate that way that was pulled out. You do say that we're approaching our levy limit, which I'd like, can you tell us how close we are?
I'd rather get back to you with specifics from
Okay.
the audit, which we just got a final draft of today.
For 24?
And yes, and so that should be finalized this week, will be presented at the next meeting. And you'll have a specific paragraph in there in the management's discussion analysis that does discuss that with the final audited figures.
Okay, and then just to be clear on the utilities, the sewer rate, did it increase in 25 to 33%, or is that for 26?
We are doing that increase for 26 to
Same year as
ensure
the
that
water.
there's enough coverage. Yes.
Okay, so
So-
33% for sewer rate increase and probably about 30% for water. And those will take effect in January pending December hearing.
Correct.
Okay, and is that a one-day deal, the December hearing?
Should be.
And then do they stew on it a while, or do they let us?
No, it's a public hearing, so the public can make comments and then it's over. And then once it's over, everything is set.
They make a determination during that hearing.
I believe it's like already been done and then the hearing is to confirm it,
Oh, okay.
similar to our budget.
So
I understand.
Mhm.
prior to the meeting though. So-
We already, it's all out there. Yes, you could actually go and check out all of the documents. They're available for public consumption on the Public Service Commission's website. They are dockets that are related to our rate case, and they already you know, pretty much say what is going to happen, but there will be some final documents with approvals and all of that after the hearing. But we already know where things are going.
Thank you.
And so the hire that we made in July, I believe was based upon the rate increase, but we've got enough cash flow that it's working out. And then I believe, did we change some projects, some public works projects because we didn't have the funding from the rate increase, or is everything still moving on just as though we had?
I believe there was a natural decrease in activity versus what we originally expected, but we're not changing our schedule based on the financing currently.
Okay, that's kind of astonishing to me considering the size of the rate decrease. I'll be eager to hear how that works out. I mean, we were proposing pretty large, like a 40% and a 50% increase, and we were approved to get a 38 and a 36. So percentage wise, that's pretty significant.
It would be hard to explain all the different things that went into that. I think it was on both sides. But there was definitely a decrease in activity versus what we originally thought was going to happen from a timing standpoint.
So like, were we supposed to start some lead service lateral replacement this fall that we didn't do?
We do have a project that was initially slated to start this fall, and the primary financing for that was bipartisan infrastructure law funding. That was deferred to spring because of a contractor schedule change, not because of the PSC decision. It actually, and Rebecca, you please correct me if I'm wrong, but other than projects that we know we have eligible bill funding available, we do not have any water projects that have been specifically identified. That's part of the Arcadis plan, right? So the dollar amount available to do those projects may change over time and may change because of PSC, but it did not impact specifically identified and scheduled projects. That makes
'Cause it
sense?
seemed to me on the southwest segment, we decided to only do lead service lines and not water mains. Was that the one that?
We made that determination in part because of the bill funding available for the private lead service lines.
And that we
Not
didn't-
because of the PSC issue.
So we just didn't have enough money to do the water main, because ideally you do the water mains at the same time.
In my perfect world, we would. In my perfect world, we'd also have all the money we needed to do everything we wanted to do. So it's a balancing act. It's a trade-off. We'll see how this goes. That's how Milwaukee is doing all of their private lead service lines, or private and public lead service line replacements. They're not replacing water main.
What
Um,
part of the
if-
city?
The city of Milwaukee.
Oh,
If we can just focus on, or if there are more technical questions, we can have follow-up. Thank you, trustee McGovern.
I did have a question about the parking utility fund. So in the Q&A, it says there is not, or that it does include a transfer from the parking fund to general fund. Number 10. Or is that a typo?
I think it might be a typo.
Does not. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was a typo.
Typo should mean does not, because the remainder is coming from the general fund resources, just spending down the fund balance, which we know we have plenty available and still have the minimum fund balance policy adhered to.
Okay. And so we're spending down what, maybe like, looks like about 60,000, 70,000?
400.
I thought it was.
Well, because,
uh,
okay, because in 2025, it was 727,646, and 2026, the balance 669,088.
Correct. That was the planned in 25,
Okay.
but the actual results were much less.
Okay.
than what we had planned. is
So
the
it's just, we
deficit.
spent that down, but it's coming back through revenue. Is that the? Okay.
The actual results in 2025 were more favorable on the expenditure side than we had forecasted.
All right. Any other questions from the board? Okay. For those, for members of the public, and anyone who may review the video, this is not our first time talking about the budget. Obviously, the board has been working towards this over the course of months and many meetings. And so, a lot of this we've covered already. So at this, Trustee Warren, did you have another question?
Oh, no.
No, okay. So at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing, which is a time for members of the public to be heard with regards to the budget that is being proposed.
Hi, my name is Donna Gensmer. I'm at 4512 North Newhall. And I'd like to discuss the beekeeping permit. A very small part of your budget. It falls under licenses and permits, which is 77% of the budget according to the slides. This past year, the fees went up substantially. The initial beekeeping permit went from $25 to $100. And the annual fee went from $10 to $50. It was a shock to me. I do have bees on my property. This falls in a number of initiatives that Shorewood has been supporting, pollinators, a green community, things like that. I am a senior on a limited income. This hit quite a bit. My understanding is that the board had gone to departments and said, okay, what is the actual cost of some of these things that we could charge the actual cost? I don't know how many beekeepers there are, but once a year, somebody has to go back and look at the requirements, familiarize themselves. And so that is a cost. But I would ask that the board support these initiatives, the green initiatives and the pollinators, and help the residents out by reducing this fee. Thank you. I did speak to the Conservation Committee.
Okay.
So they seemed supportive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
Point of clarification, is setting the fee part of a separate action where we, what is that, fee scale? Fee schedule, and that's approved at what time of year after this?
Typically mid-year.
Mid-year, okay. So actually, any change would be considered as part of the fee schedule, which is separate from this budget this evening. What we would be approving by accepting this budget as presented is a projection of fees, but not the actual fees. That said, so that's why we wouldn't be discussing it further this evening.
Can you tell me approximately when that would be? Because it was suggested to me that I come to a budget meeting to do this.
No, I think you did the right thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So, it is usually happens mid-year. So we could, number one, your comment tonight is part of the record.
Mhm.
And so it can be forwarded to be part of that discussion as well. But typically mid-year. So we can, if you've been in communication with the director of planning, or anyone at the village, I can ask that they notify you when this is coming up, at what time of year to watch for it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can also send us an email too, just so it stays sort of present in our heads.
Around that time or now?
Or anytime.
Once a month, every month,
Staff is very good at capturing public comment and making sure that it's presented when the items are
Yeah,
on the.
I know how to filter my email too. Yep. Bing.
Okay, thank you.
There you go.
Okay, with that, are there any other members of the public who would like to be heard with regards to the budget? All right, hearing and seeing none at this time, I will close the budget at 8:11. And move on to item 8, citizens to be heard. Are there any citizens who would like to be heard on a matter that is not on the agenda this evening? All right, hearing and seeing none, we will close that item and move on to new business. Item 9A, Phase 1 Streetlight Replacement Program Project Report. This comes to us as obviously part of this project. There is it seems like there's a presentation with it. Yes. You come to the podium and introduce yourselves.
Good evening. My name is Mike Scarman. With me is Chris Halverson. We're with Kale Engineering. We've been providing engineering to the village since I think 2024, starting with some planning, and here to give a presentation on year 1 of the project. It's work that's been going on 5. We do have some slides. Go. I guess, happy to entertain questions throughout. We do have some detail in the presentation, so we may answer some of those along the way. Save those to the end, either ways.
I will say if we can save questions until the end, that would be my preference as chair. But if it's going to prevent anyone from understanding, then of course we'll make adjustments.
I guess how's this? Better? Yeah, sorry.
Like you want to have it for dinner.
So
Very descriptive.
we'll trade this back and forth too. So I guess if you want to hit the next slide, just to step through a little bit of what we want to talk about tonight. Just the agenda, we'll introduce kind of who's doing what on the project. We do want to give a status of the current project, where things are at. We do have a little detail of a timeline for the project. There's been some challenges. Just want to give some background on how things have gone throughout the year, and a little bit kind of looking forward. This is a multi-year project. Want to talk about kind of things that you should expect in the years to come. So on the next slide, just to give a little bit of background. So obviously we've been working with the Department of Public Works very closely in throughout the planning and the design, now construction, with Kale Engineering. So again, my name is Mike Scarman. I helped with mostly with the planning efforts. I lead our electrical design department. Not here tonight is our project manager, Jake Joyle. He had a family commitment. Otherwise, he would have been here. Chris, if you want to.
Chris Halverson. I was part of the electrical design team and then on site for the last year for some of the electrical inspections that took place. Arman Khan, you guys may have seen him walking around throughout the project. He was our boots on the ground on the day-to-day to make sure the project was moving forward. And then our other partners were Alcon and their subcontractor PGS, Senft.
Slide. Just a reminder, it is a 5-year project. In 2024, we worked with the village and Department of Public Works to do a planning effort, really to kind of hone in. Just a little background, I'm sure you all are familiar, but you have a unique situation a lot of communities have. Especially the residential neighborhoods, lighting that is provided by utility. In Shorewood, by and large, it's almost all village owned. So you own that infrastructure, very old. It's well past its, service life in a lot of ways. So, before we got involved, that's been identified. So part of the planning, we identified kind of a 5-year build out to replace all the aging street lighting in the village. it's very similar. There's communities in the Milwaukee area that are similar to the village of Shorewood, and we've done a lot of that type of work. It's kind of a unique, you know, type of construction. A lot of the firms that would bid this work, you know, it's not a common type of project. So we've done this for about 6 years in West Dallas. Also done a lot of the similar design in city of Milwaukee. I don't know if there's any other history or background. So I guess, Chris, if you don't mind just giving a status update for where phase 1 is.
So we're about a week to a little over a week out from seeing the completion of this phase 1 project. The contractor's just working through final punch list items right now, which are mostly repulling some circuits to match the design intent. Final completion is the 26th. And then we'll, prior to the 26th, we'll have our final inspection. And we're anticipating that we'll be able to close the doors on phase 1.
When did you say final inspection is the 26th, you said, right?
We'll have it done before that. So the 26th, everything's gonna be captured, and we'll start wrapping up our as-built drawings.
On the next slide, just kind of go through the timeline. It mentioned maybe some awareness that this project had a few challenges. Construction's not entirely unique, but just to give a little bit of a point by point of kind of how the year went. So I guess before I turn it over to Chris, probably to step through most of this, I want to give a sense of we did bid this project out with a fair amount of time to complete the work. It's kind of in our view, it's best from a competitive standpoint to give some flexibility. So we did give a full season to complete this project. And ultimately we did that intentionally to make sure there was competition and interest. There's a lot of competing opportunities. So we've seen a lot of examples of projects that don't get any interest or, you know, bids that are just maybe not very favorable, expensive bids, kind of paying a premium for that. So with this project, we gave pretty much the full season, the construction season, to do the work, which was favorable. We did get 3 bids, and the low bid was lower than our estimates. We felt pretty good about the cost. Going into things, Chris, I guess if you want to walk us through the schedule.
So the notice to proceed was given to Alcon on the 21st of January. Shortly after that, we started seeing material submittals and their schedule to start moving forward. In March, they started working on Wilson Drive, which they did not have to do any directional boring. That was just pulling out old conductors, installing.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Can you just speak up and maybe more into the audio is not great.
Okay.
Sorry.
You want me to start from the beginning?
No, go for it.
All right. So on Wilson Drive, they just had to pull out old conductors and install new conductors. They had dig in some new boxes. And then while that was going concurrently, they were trying to call in locate tickets for the residential areas. It wasn't until April 8th when the first ticket cleared and they were able to start going into the residential area to start boring conduit and getting boxes in the ground.
So for someone who has no background in engineering and construction, what does a ticket clear mean?
So USIC, I believe their checks come from the utility. It's like Digger's Hotline. You call them up, say you've got a block that you want all of the utilities located, and then they have 10 days, I believe, to get on site.
3 to 10.
Okay, so that's their ticket.
Right.
Okay.
So what we noticed right away happening here, which isn't entirely unique, is those tickets, they'd get past the 10 days, there'd be nothing marked. So then you'd have to call them in again, get them on the hook, on the line to come out, get it marked. So I don't remember, I think it was like 2 or 3 calls we had to make before they finally came out and marked some of these areas, which started to cause some serious delays right out of the gate.
And I guess just for some context here, the kind of the nature of utility locating, I think if you ask any contractor, any agency statewide, it's become a very systemic kind of issue. There's a shortage of staff doing that work. There's a lot of pressure and it's a relentless pace. So it's very common. We've been grappling, all the contractors in this kind of space are familiar. So there were a lot of delays right in the beginning of getting reliable markings, which held up the contractor from kind of getting out to that fast start that they wanted to. I think everybody wanted to. I guess that was identified early just by the lack of markings. And as Chris pointed out, we had to put a lot of emphasis on utility locating companies who are really at the behest of the utility companies to get some representatives on site. It's really a high risk to proceed with work without the markings. So we really need to kind of strategize. And I think one of the bigger pieces here too is, you think about a construction project might usually be like 3-4 blocks long. We're trying to do giant segments of the village. So there's a lot to ask. So when you see those tickets, some of these companies like, I'll get to that later, and later never happens. And so it just took a lot of management, a lot of attention paid to get these to happen. So that was, maybe a big aspect of the beginning of the project.
Yep, next slide. So then around July, once we started seeing some of these delays piling up with the tickets, we did an evaluation, pretty simple. We took the amount of days that were left over and we looked at what's been paid so far on all the bid items. And on July 11th, we're at 43% of the time remaining, and there was still 74% of the money that had to get paid out, which the bid items are, once they're installed, they're paid. So 25% of the job was done at this point with less than half the time remaining. So we were able to really get the attention of the locators, and we gas, because most of our issues were with locating their infrastructure. And we did get biweeklies lined up. They arrived at the table every other week, and that really started to make the job start to progress a little quicker.
May I ask, who hired USIC and who paid them?
That's We Gas, We Energies. Yeah.
I guess the system all flows through Diggers Hotline. So when you need a locate, contractor calls in Diggers Hotline, they dispatch, the locators and the utility companies who are being located, they actually pay those locators. So it's kind of a 3-party system.
So then in early August, there was enough conduit in the ground for Alcon to start pulling conductors. But they were somewhat limited with where they could pull because of where the markings were at the time. And then, so then on 9/11, the contractor requested a 4-week extension. That was had a lot to do with how fast the markings were getting on the ground, but it was also a supply chain issue with the materials that had to go in their control cabinet. That was granted. The goalposts weren't moved as far as project completion went at this point in time. This was just a milestone adjustment where substantial completion was now the project completion.
With the control cabinet, you put the issue to order material procurement in January, and you've got supply issues with a control cabinet in September. How does that happen?
The place where they initially tried sourcing the cabinet, they couldn't get their materials in time. Their time frame was, their lead time was well beyond this project's completion, but they did not learn about that right away. So then they went to a second distributor to get that control cabinet. And then once that was in, then we were ready to inspect that, and they were able to start decommissioning the old system and getting the new system online, one circuit at a time.
So I guess just frame of reference, it was about September, there was a lot of piecemeal work being done, but it's still, the old lights active, nothing really had been transferred over. It was really September is when that turnover to some of the new infrastructure, new wiring started to happen. And I guess that was really a trigger point for, you know, some of the inspection to take place for the first time. So kind of our ability to take a look at kind of the product that's getting put in. Before that, there was kind of sporadically, you know, piecemeal installed different areas, not really cohesively, you know, put together until about September. We started seeing chunks go together that we could actually kind of judge the performance and the quality of work. I guess, Chris, the kind of next steps here.
So we had a inspection walk scheduled for October 2nd. And a few days prior to that, we had a conversation with the contractor, and he let us know that they didn't know where they went, but they had ordered and installed roughly 350 more splice blocks than what they intended to. So,
Sorry, what did you just say?
so the splice blocks, which are where you splice conductors together. So we had around 500 on our bid item list, and they were at about 850, which had a scratch in our head right away. And then once we finally, you know, made it to this first walkthrough on October 2nd, within about 30 minutes, Dan was out there with us. Within about 30 minutes, we started to see where all the extra splice blocks went. And there was a major deviation from the design. They still had a code compliant system, but the design intent was to keep all of the splices at the light poles. When you guys walk around phase one, you'll see ground boxes at each corner of each intersection. Those all should have been wires that are going straight through to the next light pole, where the way they installed this, they have a splice point at each one of those.
So how long had that been the approach that they were executing?
Well, it would appear the whole time.
The whole time?
Yeah.
Okay. And any sense as to why they deviated from?
No.
Okay.
No.
Like they weren't saving money. They were.
They
They didn't know
definitely,
how to read a. They didn't know how to read a plan.
I think so
Alcon, we're talking Alcon. here or the
Alcon and their
subcon?
subcontractor,
Both of them.
PGS, so Paul Sempt did all their box installation and all their conduit installation due to the delays with We Energy's gas marking. So they were putting in, let's say, a block of conduit at a time. And in order for Alcon to meet the contract deadline, they were just installing wiring a block at a time.
So instead of coming and saying, we've got a big problem
Correct.
here.
Correct.
just
So they
proceeded
said
in a way
none
that
of
didn't
that.
meet the plan.
Yep, they said none of that to us. So they were installing wiring at a block instead of running wiring, let's say, 3 blocks to the next light pole. They were doing it block by block and just cutting the wiring, putting the splice blocks.
And you didn't see this going on.
So like with how inspection works is we do it as they say it's done. So when Chris would come out and do an inspection, he sees all the conduit boxes sitting on the street corner, nothing's installed. We don't inspect that yet. And if they come out and install it the following day after he's not there and he's coming back the following day, it's all installed, boom. And that this was in about 5 days to maybe 10 days for the end of September to the initial walkthrough in October.
Well, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Yeah, it has a good ending. I like the way this show ends. So, but I appreciate, let's walk it through and stay focused on where we're going.
I think we're probably on the next page, just kind of cycling through, you know, a lot of this stuff became apparent. Some of it was, you know, through notification of the contractors. Some of it is, you know, as a function of us being out there now to have something to inspect. You know, there was essentially an immediately kind of pulled together a conversation of how do we resolve this. You know, I think the important part is we wanted, you know, the village, KL to make sure the end product was as designed, you know, the robust long-term product that was intended. So, you know, from the get-go with some of the deviation of what we saw for the end goals, like, let's get it right, let's get it done. So ultimately in, you know, late October, as some of this stuff was being resolved. The punch list was developed, very typical for most projects, as things get done, there's little things clean up, the same thing with any type of construction. A punch list is just kind of the end list of, the to-do list for the contractor to clean up, get things tidied up and be done. At this point, I'll just kind of point to, with some of the things that were found, it became kind of a necessity to look at the contract completion deadline one more time. We did give them 1 extra week to resolve things. Ultimately just with the knowledge of what still needed to be done, we felt that was a practical way of just getting things kind of moving, not kind of delaying or kind of focusing on punitive damages. We just wanted to get the work done. The contractors seem motivated to follow suit. Chris, do you mind taking the last few or this one here? I think you're more familiar.
Yep. After, it was very shortly after the contract extension, contractor reached out to us letting us know they couldn't get the conductors they needed before November 7th. So they got granted an extension to the 26th, but that extension would include retroactive liquidated damages that would go back to the 7th if they were not able to complete by the 26th. As well as invoking the performance bond, which that, on the 7th, the contractor and the surety were notified that the
Louder,
consideration-
please. Keep your voice.
on the 11th, the contractor and their surety were notified of the consideration of declaring a contract default. So now their back's up against the wall and they really don't have a choice but to finish by the 26th. And just a real quick update on that, they're about 26, contractor said 26% complete with their punch list
What did you
items.
just, I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Which part?
The last part.
26%.
Where are we
Yep.
now?
So that was as of yesterday morning or this morning. They were 26% complete with repulling the conductors the way they're supposed to be installed. They're planning on being done by this Friday.
And
yeah.
You think that'll happen? Yes, no?
Yeah, if they have all hands on deck right now.
Okay.
They had a crew here on Saturday working away at it. I know they're not done by this Friday. They will be here on Saturday as well. But I think if they're 26% done already, that's only 2 days it took them to get to 26%.
Okay.
That was last Friday and then a half crew on Saturday.
So to recap, all the performance issues have been addressed. You're doing everything you can. The contractor and subcontractor are making progress, and any damages to the village will, that might not be the right word. I mean, we're not going to court or anything, but we will be made whole as a holder of a contract.
That's correct.
Mhm.
I think at this point, we have a lot of confidence that all the material, the correct material is on site, being installed, the punch list items are being addressed. Any of these kind of revisions in timeline have been done to, kind of just secure a practical path forward with assurances that the village will be protected from any kind of financial loss if something doesn't pan out. It's not what we expect. But the deadline came with a stipulation that, back pay damages would be assessed. We don't expect that at this point, but if that were to occur, that's in place. And then the performance bond notification kind of makes it a very serious default for the contractor not to abide. They've been notified. They know what's at stake. We have no reason to think they're not going to get it done by the timeline that's been set.
Great.
Are we, oh, sorry.
Mhm.
Are you planning on using the same subcontractor for phase 2?
It would be a brand new contract. So this is for 1 year's worth of work.
Right.
So
So
the
we'll
work that would happen
rebid.
next year would be a separate bid. Ultimately, we do have some points to talk about kind of how we view next year and just given the performance issues of this contractor. I'll just give a brief intro of kind of looking ahead. Again, this is a 5-year plan. So the first year is I guess the purple area in the top left. That's where we started. Next year will be the blue in the lower right. I guess just maybe some context of how some of these phases were designated. Chris, do you mind giving a quick background on that?
Yep. The phasing was dictated based off of other public works projects that were going to be happening throughout the next 4 or 5 years, in addition to the Lake Shore, the Lake Drive project. Also taken into consideration is phasing this so that we're working our way back to the main panels that are serving all the lighting right now. That way, it's just what made sense to work it back.
Thank you.
So I guess just looking ahead, this was a unique year. Just candidly, the contractor that did get the low bid was, set up in a kind of a unique way we haven't seen before. They split the work with a subcontractor. Usually it's a majority of the work is with the prime and a small portions of work with subs. This was almost 50-50. I think we felt that created some challenges. It was a little, not a clear line of authority and kind of who's driving the schedule. So I guess some of the best practices that we see as valuable to kind of put in the bid documents for next year, prevent the likelihood of that happening, is we can stipulate the percentage of work the prime contractor needs to carry to be a higher percentage.
Could you make it 100%? Could you not allow us up?
I would generally say that's maybe impractical to the level of, again, with, if you could, dictate the timing of a project to be very aggressive schedule, you may not get anybody interested in doing it. So doing something like that, I think we'd fear you might not get a healthy amount of competition that would drive up prices.
So the answer is yes, of course you can. It may not get the benefit that.
Exactly. And I think we're going to work with your staff to kind of figure out where that sweet spot is. And it's dependent. Each project, each area is different. There may be site restoration, for example, where we need concrete sidewalk panels pulled up, or some, more extensive landscaping. That's something an electrical contractor has to sub out. That's not work they do. So some proportion of that we'll have to make a judgment. But the reality is I think we're going to want to push that bar higher just to make sure we've got a solid contractor that views the work is, something they prioritize. Secondly is to look at just kind of building in more milestones. Kind of mentioned how this contractor hopped around a lot. Some of that was, justified by the utility performance, locating performance, or lack of performance. But honestly, I think the takeaway was, if we require them to, if you start in an area, you finish an area. We'll put more specifics to that, more framework that I think makes sense for the area in phase 2. That might sound a little different in phase 3, 4, 5, but that's another area I think we intend to put more structure to make sure that where they start, they finish, they make more progress in a just kind of a forward moving fashion. And thirdly, and I think we touched on this with the utility locate, I don't expect that's going to be better this year without a lot of similar effort. I don't know that there is a way to manage that without just kind of starting earlier, bringing those locate companies, the utility companies, in from the beginning instead of a reaction after they failed to do those locates. I think we're going to anticipate that that's going to happen again. Our work, any engineer or contractor will tell you that's pretty much the nature of the beast these days. So our intention is to kind of build that conversation before the work starts, make sure they're poised and ready to do the locating so those delays don't happen early on like this year. And I think the fourth and final point is just to do, a more comprehensive job of just monitoring the, I guess, the status of either the old lights or the new lights, make sure they're on when they're not. There are penalties in this contract to enforce that, this contractor keeps the lights on. But the hard part is, if we're not hearing them at nighttime, in the summer, that's a late, they don't turn on until 10, 9:30. To have a better mechanism to spot when the lights aren't on, to notify so we can assess either penalties if need be, or at least notify the contractor, get out there, figure it out, turn the lights back on. We did have a number of those occurrences. Again, just trying to prevent being reactionary next year and years to come.
Appreciated. And this is a report, so there's no action required. I would invite trustees to email with additional questions or follow up if there is. It's a pretty technical topic, but I appreciate that. Final question, trustee Stokbrand?
No, so I was wondering, so everybody so far has been paid on time for everything? Is that correct? You've gotten your money. Alcon's got their money. The sub has their money, no?
I don't know the exact value, but Alcon has not been made whole.
I'm sorry.
I do not know what the exact value is, but Alcon has not been made whole yet. There's minimum 10% retainage. Then
10% what, retained?
retainage, yep. And then there's I don't believe that I'd have to look to confirm this, but I don't believe their last pay application was paid out either at this
Well, I
point.
would assume that the final payment is the one that you would withhold if things aren't. And so at this point, are we just behind, obviously, huge amounts of our staff time? And we're slow on the project. So we're not out any money. The village is not financially out any money, but it's way beyond the deadline of the project. And we have spent a lot of, that a fair assessment?
I think it's fair. It hasn't cost the village any more money. The contractor has not been paid fully for the work they've even completed. They won't until they pass all the inspections, finish everything. I think it's undeniable the staff time was more significant than you would hope. Ultimately, we hope that's not the case next year.
Right, and obviously residents living in a construction zone, not as bad as a road, but clearly. I've had a lot of questions about, like, my lights are on at odd times in that part of the village. So can we say that on Friday, that part of the village should have regular operating street lights at the times they would expect and not during the day? Like, is that what we're looking at?
That would absolutely be the intent, I guess, Chris, if, as far as time clocks or Dan?
So they're on during the day because they also have to hook power up to the lights to make sure that they're working. So a lot of times throughout the day, throughout the project, the lights are on. Most of the time, Alcon forgot to turn the lights on when they would leave at night. So I would have to have staff come in and turn the lights on and cut their lock off the cabinet for their lockout tag out. Do that probably 8, 9, 10 times throughout the project.
You call me, I'll do it.
But that's these are the,
These are
I think
these
these
are the
are-
problems that we've had with Alcon. So this is why we brought
Yeah.
it to you. Like, it's not just,
and this is
something that-
information.
yes,
So
Right, and I
there's,
think the residents have a right to know this. If you,
I'm not disagreeing that there is.
yes, they do have a right to know. And so this is why we have this.
and we appreciate it.
brought
We
it to you
appreciate
for
the
that.
information. It's a big deal this has been a huge project. And we need to hear about what's happening. We have time. We have time.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I
Okay.
guess, going forward, so we're with you guys for 5 years, is that?
Correct.
This is the deal.
Correct.
And so there's a lot of trust. Because, this is a big deal for the village. We decided to take this on in 5 years, which we were told was a very big ask. Given the problems with the marking, and it sounds small, but it seems to be a very big problem. Should we relook at the phases?
No,
You don't sound like you can fix this marking problem. So why would we stick with this phasing?
I would stay with the phasing. Prolonging this is only going to make it worse.
And I would say at this
And-
point, we are out of
And
scope.
the marking is not controlled by the village, nor is it controlled by Alcon. It is
That's what I'm
controlled by
saying.
We
We have no
Energy's gas.
control over it, so why would?
So the way how it is that we've done it in the past, we have held We Energy's gas permits from being approved through the village to get them to move. So we were real close to enacting that again until we made a whole bunch of phone calls, got people on the phone and set up those bi-weekly meetings. Now they know that this is happening for the next 5 years, had many conversations with them. I don't foresee that being a problem at all.
So as I said, thank you very much for that additional information. For exactly this reason, because this was a report, we've got excellent information, very transparent. If there are aspects of the plan that we want to discuss as a board, maybe before it's bid, what have you, we can agenda that discussion. I'm completely open to it, or the Public Works Committee can take it on. And that's why I would like trustees to email additional questions for discussion if there are any, and then we can agenda it appropriately in the future. Thank you. Director Buchlik?
Just to speak to that point, we are we're moving ahead with phase two.
Mhm.
We expect to begin internal plan review on that next week. It goes out on the street in the first week of December.
Mhm.
So if there's serious consideration of changing the 5-year schedule, and that is not something that we recommend,
Mhm.
that has to be a right now, kind of like not now,
Mhm.
but within the next scheduled board meeting
Mhm.
conversation.
Thank you. So this is serious talk. Mhm. So the purposes of the report this evening was for us to be made aware of this phase one, the success and the challenges, the looking ahead, and to the point, we need to, if there is any desire to reconsider the plan, that needs to be communicated to the village manager and I as soon as possible so that we can consider it. If all the questions have been asked and we understand that this is not, that all the plan review and is going to be corrected in the next RFP, or then we move ahead. All right. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to 9B, consider RFP for parking and citation management system. So all the information is contained within the packet, and remind me, was this at committee or did it come straight here?
It was at the Budget and Finance Committee.
So it comes to us from Budget and Finance Committee. Captain Santiago is present for any questions. I would open it for questions.
I just have a question. The motion says we're recommending this to the village board. So would the possible motion be to recommend this to be for staff to put this RFP?
Correct.
You want to make that?
I move to recommend that the staff release the RFP for parking and citation management system as presented by the police department.
Second.
Motion by trustee Stokbrand, seconded by trustee Arndorfer. Any discussion?
I
Hearing
did have a
none.
question. So it says, I think it's on page 180 of the packet, page 2 of the proposal. Proposals due December 5th. Then I think later down it says proposals will be accepted on or before December 12th. So maybe we just need to make sure those numbers match for those dates. The instructions to firms is on page 3 of that document, but 181 of the packet. So it's just a week difference, but I would think maybe those would want to be the same.
Does
Do
anybody
we,
have a response to that?
One says,
Fernando, can you use the microphone, please?
yeah, it says, so on estimated timeline says proposal questions response December 1, proposals due December 5, and that's at the bottom of page 2 of the RFP. But then the next page says instructions to firms, number 2 says proposals will be accepted on or before December 12. And it,
We can,
what day do you want? We'll
we
put the
can
what-
update that. Probably just a mistake.
Okay, so do you want 5 or 12?
5.
5, okay. So with that amendment, with that change in the document, my motion would stand.
I do have a question.
Did we
maybe,
get oh, we did get a second.
There's-
Mhm.
oh, yeah. Oh, for, maybe I missed this because I'm not in the budget committee, but I thought that when we were first looking at this, it was going to be, maybe we would have we'd look at doing parking meters on Oakland Avenue. And I'm just curious how Atwater got in there, as I thought that was not within the scope of that. Or is this just regular parking, not parking?
It's technically both. So most of these companies, we're looking at replacing our whole parking and management system, which is the AIM software right now, or EDC Corporation. And most of the companies out there right now are able to also support the curb management or parking meters as a piece of their software.
So just because the Atwater Beach proximity parking is included in this scope, it doesn't mean that we would be expressing support or there would be an ordinance down the road. as far
Correct.
as
It's
where-
just more to get information from the
Ex-
companies that at any point we can then turn that part of their software on, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I did want to make clear that we're not, I mean, I think from the overview on page 177 of the packet makes it sounds like we have already approved a mobile parking payment procurement, which to me, does that mean mobile? That means meters, right? Virtual meters?
Well, paid parking, right? So, yeah, and that's the thing is we haven't approved paid parking policy or system. So is that required before we move ahead with an RFP?
No,
Does
I
that
don't.
make sense?
Yeah, I guess.
I guess
it's
I'm
just
not
as long
exactly sure
as-
what we're asking.
As long as we're clear that we have not agreed to parking meters in any way, shape, or form, but we're keeping the option open.
That would be correct.
Correct.
So there's two components in the RFP. One is to replace or an option for the current system that we use for paid on-street parking and for our lots with the option of also mobile meter parking.
Mhm.
And so for item D as in David on page 183, I mean, obviously any vendor is going to look online and say, oh, they don't have that now, but they want that. But we want to make it clear that we're considering it. We're not. You see what I'm saying?
Right, so
Is
is
that
that
clear enough?
clear?
We have item D, paid on-street curb parking management, mobile pay parking. And then, there's,
Well, we're requesting that proposal include how they would manage paid parking.
okay.
So, I mean,
If the policy were to exist.
correct. When it
Correct.
comes to the contract itself, we choose what parts of the contract,
Okay,
obviously,
so it's
we.
forward-looking without a commitment.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
And you can fill us in at budget at the finance committee. Was this discussed?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I don't remember more.
Basically, instead of doing just the parking and management system, and then 4 months from now, doing another RFP to get the information on the mobile parking and meters, we wanted to get all the info up front so that we have it.
And the research that Captain Santiago had done, this seemed like a very doable thing. That vendors are doing this all the time and not a different ask that other companies have not done. So,
Would
and
you
I
like to
thank him
add?
a lot for all of his work on this.
I agree with Trustee Stoker. I mean, this is just something from the budget and finance discussion, something that's forward-looking, keeps our options open, and it has one vendor kind of describe what not committed. Particular.
Correct.
Just that new parking management system for the police department to start using, because the current Axiom ends in April.
Yes.
So maybe we'll get some lower prices.
Thank you. We can close discussion at this time. And any other, all those in favor of the RFP with the slight amendment regarding dates? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Oh, that's right, because yeah. Thank you. So that's, it passes 6-1. I'm all for information. All right, moving on to 9C. This is where we start a number of resolutions that pertain to the budget process. So 9C is to consider a resolution 2025-16, a resolution adopting the 2026 budget and authorizing the 2025 general property tax levy against all taxable property in the village of Shorewood. So a vote just in advance, a vote yes for this resolution is accepting the budget as presented. An alternative motion would reflect potential amendments in the budget. But I think at this point, I would entertain a motion to approve the budget as proposed, and then if that doesn't pass, we would move on to consider an amended.
I have a question about the $150,000 that we have budgeted for an organizational study of all village departments. I sat in a little bit on strategic initiatives. Do we want to keep that in there? It didn't sound to me from the discussion that that's moving forward.
At this time, I don't feel as if there's enough information to make the best conclusive decision. Allowing it to remain in that line item and be unexpended would then transfer then to your fund balance at year end.
And what the contingency is 100,000 anyway, our contingency reserves. That we usually budget 100,000 for,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
so this would make it 50,000.
So, right, you would have the option to propose an amendment to the budget and then see if that's, if that passes. Trustee Arndorfer.
I move to approve resolution 2025-16, a resolution adopting the 2026 budget and authorizing the 2025 general property tax levy against all taxable property in the village of Shorewood.
I'll second.
Motion by trustee Arndorfer, seconded by trustee Warren. Discussion at this time?
I'd just like to thank everyone for all their work on it. I know it's a challenging part of the year. And it takes a lot of effort. Appreciate everyone's work. I especially appreciate the improved documentation. It made it much easier to understand.
Thank you. I agree. All right, hearing no further discussion, this will be a roll call vote.
Trustee Arndorfer,
Aye.
trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Kudo,
Yes.
trustee Ursink,
Aye.
President McKay,
Aye.
trustee Stokbrand,
Aye.
trustee McGovern.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, thank you. Moving on to 9D, consider resolution 2025-17 to carry forward allowable prior year unused levy capacity. So this is essential.
I move to approve resolution 2025-17 to carry forward allowable prior year unused levy capacity.
Second.
Second.
Okay, see how this one's going. Motion by trustee Arndorfer, seconded by trustee Stokbrand. Any further discussion? Hearing none, this will also be a roll call vote.
Trustee Kudo,
Yes.
trustee Arndorfer,
Aye.
trustee Warren,
Aye.
President McKay,
Aye.
trustee McGovern,
Aye.
trustee Stokbrand,
Aye.
trustee Ursink.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
9F, consider resolution 2025-19 delinquent municipal charges. This allows us to add unpaid charges to the tax roll, our individual property taxes bills. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by trustee Kudo, seconded by trustee Warren. Any discussion? Hearing none, this will be a roll call vote also.
President McKay,
Aye.
trustee Kudo,
Yes.
trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Arndorfer,
Aye.
trustee Ursink,
Yes.
trustee McGovern,
Aye.
trustee Stokbrand.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. 9F, consider resolution 2025-19 special assessments for private laterals. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by trustee McGovern, seconded by trustee Kudo. Any discussion? Hearing none, this will be a roll call vote.
Trustee Ursink,
Yes.
trustee Kudo,
Aye.
President McKay,
Aye.
trustee Arndorfer,
Aye.
trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Stokbrand,
Aye.
trustee McGovern.
Aye.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. 9G, consider resolution 2025-20 bid operating plan and special assessments.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Warren, seconded by trustee Kudo. Any discussion? This was reviewed in committee last meeting. Hearing none, this will be a roll call vote.
Trustee Stokbrand,
Aye.
President McKay,
Aye.
trustee Arndorfer,
Aye.
trustee Kudo,
Yes.
Trustee McGovern,
Aye.
trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Ursink.
Aye.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank
Got
you.
away from random generate.
9H, that concludes our budget-related action for this evening. Thank you. 9H, consider ordinance 3076, amending the annual streetlight charge for corner lots. This is something that is coming to us from the Public Works Committee with a unanimous recommendation to approve after an extensive appeals process and a review of the ordinance. I would take a motion to approve.
Yep. So I move to approve ordinance 3076, amending the annual streetlight operations special charge for corner lots.
I'd like to second that motion.
Motion by trustee Ursing, seconded by trustee Kudo. Any discussion? Hearing none, this will be a roll call vote.
Trustee Kudo,
Yes.
President McCaig,
Aye.
trustee Arndorfer, trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee McGovern,
Aye.
trustee Stokbrand,
Aye.
trustee Ursink.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. Final order of new business, 9I, consider RFP for owners representative services. This item was agended for our last meeting, but was deferred in favor of some revisions. So it comes back to us with those revisions. I appreciate village manager's effort on that. At this time, I'd like to I would ask for a motion to approve.
I'd like to approve agenda item I,
As in igloo?
as in igloo.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That concludes new business for this evening. Moving on to reports of village officials, village president. There was an ICC meeting last week. We did not link, but we can do that in the next one. I chaired the Racial Equity and Inclusion Committee of the ICC last week as well. And we had a really great discussion around the issue of the need to educate our communities and show leadership in addressing domestic violence. And we are going to work on that for the next year, using the experience that Shorewood had to encourage other municipalities in Milwaukee County to do the same. And I believe that is my only report this evening. Village trustees?
I was honored to be invited to ribbon cutting at CL, the Senior Living Center over on Capitol, and it was just fantastic to meet the group and to meet a lot of the residents and some folks that were just there for the food, and just some very lovely people, and got to meet some people that have been here for 3 generations. And I think it's just so important that we continue to focus on issues that pertain to our seniors and that walkability and all the little things that make this village great for both our seniors and our young families is really valuable, and moments like that really reinforce that. So I appreciate that offer to be a part of that. Another thing is the Shorewood Farmers Market is now expanding to wintertime. We have agreed on to host Winter Farmers Market on Sundays from January to February as a pilot sort of test for the first year at the atrium. So every Sunday from 9 to 1, we will do our best to supply good local food, maybe some vegetables, whatever may be out there, and a lot of fun. So looking forward to that.
Will there be any food trucks outside?
There will be food trucks.
And well done.
It's a great
It's
milestone.
big
Thank you.
accomplishment.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll see.
Winter squash.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what's available.
Other reports?
Oh, I'm just curious, CL, was that just like a ribbon cutting because it had changed? from
Yeah,
Harbor
yep,
Chase? Okay, so
exactly.
there's
And it was
nothing-
hosted by, which I'd be interested in learning more. It was hosted by the North Shore Chamber. So there's a chamber. So we have our bid, right? But there's a chamber that encompasses the North Shore, which was really interesting. I had no idea about them, and they were a big influence in doing this ribbon cutting. So, got to meet some of those folks, but really interested in learning more about that organization because they
We
seem to have
can-
some sort of influence here in Shorewood to a certain degree. Like they were there, but not our own bids. So, yeah,
we could invite them as a special order if this.
That'd be
is-
great. I'd love that.
Thank you. Yes.
I have something, I know I said I attended the Saltwise. I'm a trained applicator. I passed the
Oh.
quiz
Oh,
and I'm good until December 31, 2030.
Congrats.
Wow. Who knew? I had to get 18 out of 20. Who? Anyway, I attended the Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. It was a day of dialogue at the Whitefish Bay Library. It was very meaningful. And there were probably about 4 dozen people there this week and sponsored by Bay Bridges and Supervisor O'Connor.
I would love for Shorewood to be a part of that next year. Would you like to be our representative? It came up at the REI committee.
Let me think about what the commitment would be.
Okay. That's great.
But I don't know what you have in mind, but it was a good program.
Thank you. Other reports of trustees? Hearing none, village manager.
Candidate forum coming around, same time, same place. So this is where I also ask if we could have people from the board or trustees from the board also attend, just to be a resource for questions for those people who may not be serving on the village board at this time, but interested in running. As in years past, we've also done this in cooperation with the school district. So they're also on the notice. They'll be sharing it through their media sources and things of that nature. But we typically have always met in the lower level of Village Center. So we'll do this and then depart at a time in which then our meeting starts later that evening.
So last year it was on the first floor of the library in that little meeting off the children's area.
Correct.
Is that where it will be? Or downstairs?
Oh, it's the same room?
Upstairs.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected.
I'm happy to be there.
Wonderful. Thank you, trustee Kudo.
Cowdo can come too.
And I would encourage our two trustees who are up for reelection, that to take note of, isn't there a deadline to declare non-candidacy? So don't miss that if you're planning not to run, but also I look forward to your announcements that you are going to run. So we welcome, either way, we support you. So moving forward. Oh, it's December 26th. Plenty of time.
No.
Oh.
The file, non-candidacy.
To file non-candidacy is 26th. So future items of consideration, we don't have any listed this evening, and so I would take a motion to go into closed session.
I would like to move the village board consider a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85 1E to deliberate or negotiate the purchasing of public lost my spot. Somebody pick up
Properties
public properties.
where competitive
We're competitive.
for bargaining reasons
I lost this. My computer skipped.
require a closed session to discuss prospective properties for the new DPW site.
Agreed.
Motion by trustee Kudo, seconded by trustee Stokebrand. This will be a roll call vote.
Trustee Kudo,
Yes.
President McKay,
Aye.
trustee Arndorfer,
Aye.
trustee Ursink, trustee McGovern,
Aye.
trustee Stokebrand.
Aye.
Trustee Warren.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
We are now in closed session at 9:09 PM.
And at this time, for those people who are on the call virtually, we're going to be shutting down the meeting on Zoom. There is no action scheduled other than adjournment following the closed session. Thank you for attending.
You can do a bio break.